What's up, nerds? Welcome to the Align in the Stars podcast. My name is Jordan.
I'm Matt.
And we're here to talk to you tonight about some sci-fi. A little bit of Star Trek, a little bit of Star Wars. So I'm just going to come out and admit right off the bat that I said I was going to read Dooku. And, you know, what's funny is, like, I'm not planning on actually reading it.
Right.
I'm planning on listening to it. I'm a piece of shit. Still haven't done it. But with that being said, however, I went ahead and did get the subscription to Audible taken care of. Now that I'm paying $14 a month, I have no choice.
Yes.
So I can't make any promises. I was gonna. The plan, like, was in talking about it, like, I was gonna actually get to reading Dooku, and it's been probably 2 or 3 podcasts. So I've been saying this, so it's about time that I get it done. I wanted to come out and admit that right off the bat because I suck. And otherwise, another quick note before we kind of get rolling. Matt got his lightsaber in the mail, and it's sitting right in the middle of the table. And God, I need to spend $300 that I don't need to spend. This is just...
Yeah, I got it with Saberforge, because I really like the ability to customize your own saber.
Yeah.
I mean, a good, like, center line that I felt comfortable with was, like, around the $300.
Yeah, dude. I
actually paid for it. I bought it like 2 days after Christmas as, like, my Christmas gift to myself.
Yeah.
Turns out it showed up a month before my birthday.
I know, it's kind of crazy, and, like, I mean, it doesn't feel like, if you felt like that you went and got something that you weren't quite sure about, like, or not even quite sure about, that's the wrong way of putting it, like, if this wasn't the most expensive, like, it's really nice, it feels like high quality, it's really bright, sounds great.
I'm really glad that I forgot which handle I went with.
Yeah.
And I was very pleased with my former self,
nice.
my past self, who chose the leather grip over any of the other ones, because the leather grip feels nice.
It really does. And, I wasn't swinging around, because I'm not going to swing around somebody's $300 lightsaber. That'll be from mine later on down the line. But it just feels good. It feels balanced. It's really kind of cool just kind of holding a lightsaber, even though, it's not real, but it's about as close as you can get. Like, I mean, I guess for reference, like, when I was a kid, like, when Star Trek was in an absolute heyday, like, its absolute heyday back in, like, the late 90s, the toys that were out were pretty crazy, like toy phasers that you press the trigger and it made noises. And, like, I still have both phasers, both Type 2 phasers from the Next Gen. And I have both tricorders. They're pretty cool. But I still just don't think it comes in comparison to just holding a lightsaber. There's just something iconic about it. Although, as weird as it sounds for me, holding a fake comm badge, like a Star Trek comm badge, that always feels really cool.
That's one of the things that is always readily available for, like, fan props, is very good quality small props.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like comm badges, like the lapel pieces, the pips.
Yeah.
The insignias, the rank insignias in Star Wars for the Empire.
Yeah,
a lot of those are
the rank badges.
The rank badges, and also the data
data cylinders.
Yeah,
so cool.
Those are always, like, well made, because oftentimes they are made of metal.
Well, and not just that, but I mean, it's practical effects for them, or practical pieces, and so it's not hard to find it. And so it's really cool. Just kind of sitting here, like, playing with it. I mean, just holding it right now, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I need to spend money that I don't need to spend.
At the end of the day, it was like, okay, at least just once.
Yeah.
I'm good for a while. I'm like, Christmas money. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to fulfill a childhood dream right now.
Yeah.
I had, despite not seeing episodes 1 and 2 or 3 in theaters, the toy saber I had at home was Qui-Gon Jinn's.
Nice. Oh, Yeah, you know what's funny is I had a Darth Maul dual lightsaber toy as a kid, and I was too old for that, but I still had it.
You know what I hate though? When I got this lightsaber and started spinning it around outside, instantly my brain went, you need a double-bladed lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like instantaneously, because then you're moving at the true center point. You got this long range. There's something about where my body like goes like, yes, I want to manipulate a double-bladed lightsaber.
All I can think of is Lightsaber Kid.
Yeah.
The old meme back in the
old
day.
Meme.
Oh my! It's like one of the very first. It's like one of the very first memes, you know. And so, yeah, we were having a Lightsaber Kid moment out in the garage there for a little bit, and so, yes, I mean, you know, laughing about it now, but we are really just a couple of big kids.
We are big kids.
It's pretty awesome, like to be able to talk about that and like just be able to just hold that toy and like
and get that big dumb grin on your face.
Exactly. Like, oh yeah, it was pretty awesome. So on that front, you know, for me, you know, well, I guess we'll do a little bit of catching up. I really have been kind of just dabbling kind of on the video game front a little bit, playing a little bit more video games lately. GTA 5 specifically,
your go-to.
It's always a go-to.
I mean, I played that on the 360.
I mean, I played it on the 360 and dominated that game. This is the first time like actually going through, and like the extra content on the 5 is pretty cool. And like really, like with my roommate who has the PS5, like really the big difference is that I'm noticing with consoles is like it's really just the background these days.
It's more about immersion.
Exactly, total immersion. I was playing off topic quickly. I was playing the Call of Duty Black Ops, the mission mode last night on PS5, and that haptic feedback on the controller is a mindfuck, dude.
Yeah.
It is like.
And that's not even a pro controller. That's like the standard controller.
Yeah, like, and it's insane.
Yeah.
Like pulling the trigger, it feels like it's heavy.
Yeah.
And changing guns, like you go to like a 1911 from like a, I don't know, just like
an auto to like a rifle. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like an auto to a handgun.
Yeah.
Literally, the difference between pulling the trigger and not is like night and day.
Yeah.
It is so crazy. So yeah, I've been just playing a little bit of video games. Obviously, still like, I mean, Rebels will always be my go-to at the end of the night.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of working through the Vader portion of it, coming up on Twilight of the Apprentice.
Yeah.
You know, with Vader and Ahsoka, and so well written, so well done. I really, one of my favorite scenes in all Rebels is the moment where, you know, Ahsoka spins over the top of Vader, cuts part of his helmet off, you know, and you see Anakin's face, at least from the Clone Wars Anakin, right? Like his eyes, they got the eyes right. Like it was interesting, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but the art for Anakin in that scene was Clone Wars animation. It was not Rebels animation.
Yeah, because we saw Rebels Anakin there, but
much softer lines, what have you. But the Anakin that you see behind the mask there
is Clone Wars
Anakin.
Essentially.
I love how they did that. It was so good. But that scene where it clicks for her, where she figures it out, and then he says Ahsoka,
and you hear a bit of Anakin's voice.
And you feel like, you know, because
the music, the sound drops, so you get the sort of thing, but like that's also like in your head happening already. That sound effect is already happening in your head, where everything just goes deaf and you only hear
the two of them.
The two of them. You only hear Anakin's voice through Vader.
Through Vader, and that's such a powerful scene because, you know, even Ahsoka, like we mentioned this in 2 podcasts ago, you know, like it always came back to Anakin. It always came back. And Luke, right? Like Luke's place in the whole Chosen One prophecy. But Ahsoka came this close to redeeming him then, you know, and so you can theorize and yada, 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 but I don't want to. Like, that is such a powerful scene, and to see it revisited at the end of Rebels in the world between worlds and how we always wondered what happened to Ahsoka and Ahsoka lives and yada, yada,
that
yada.
was such a great period of just like waiting in anticipation. Yeah. Just like, okay, Ahsoka lives, but how does she live? Ahsoka lives.
Right. And so, I'm coming up on that. And, this week, though, for sure, it's going to be, Dooku. And so we are anticipating for our next episode to really kind of do an in-depth look at Dooku. And I am going to actually try. I did buy the physical copy of the first two High Republic books. And so I want to read Light of the Jedi, although it's just hard. Like I used to be I had no problem picking up a book. I mean, I read the entirety of Harry Potter in less than 2 weeks. Like, not a big deal. But I don't know, like, I guess having a girlfriend kind of makes time go away.
That's additional time commitment.
Yeah, a little bit. So, but the goal definitely is for me to get Dooku. And then I'm getting prepared. Matt's going to talk about here in a second about, what he's finished up and on the break that he's about to take. But we're both kind of gearing up to watch Enterprise here soon. I didn't watch Voyager with him. I didn't watch DS9. We're going to watch Enterprise together, episode for episode, and really excited about that. So that's kind of what's been going on for me. You actually finished up.
Yeah, I actually finished up Dooku.
Okay, he's throwing some shade, and he said he was going to. He said he was going to.
That being said,
real quick, I've been talking about reading Dooku for fucking ever, and homeboy just cracks it out this last week at work. Like, I'm just gonna play it, and I'm not gonna try to hide anything from you. No big deal. So yeah,
I mean, that my goal was to give him a bit more of a tease to the book, give a little bit of motivation.
Well, and one thing about that too, though, is like I was curious of like how Asajj's part was played in that story,
because this is at the beginning of her being an apprentice,
right? And so it didn't make any sense to me how Asajj fit in, but she's the fucking narrator, and it is so good. So it's like, I have no choice now. And the voice acting in that is so good. So good.
So I finished up Dooku. I'm re-listening to Light of the Jedi. This is all in my anticipation for Jordan to finish with the High Republic. I'm hyping myself up, and that already didn't need to be done. So I finished Voyager. I pretty much said everything I kind of wanted to say about Voyager in the last episode, but kind of just to put a bow on it, now that I have watched season 7 and it is done, boiled down, I enjoyed it, not as much as DS9, and I put it just below Next Gen. Simply because of how well the characters were handled in DS9, that I still think that Next Gen does such a good job with its characters.
Agreed.
I'm more inclined to find a way to buy a Rakta Geno cup from DS9 than Janeway's coffee mug.
Right.
I think that puts into the best in how I feel about Voyager.
Right.
I enjoyed it, but not so much to buy merch. But I will add my name to the documentary that they're doing, because
that's awesome.
I mean,
I've already
I still want to see
myself.
it. Outside of Star Trek, because now I'm in a little bit of a break. I for a hot minute I considered just jumping into Enterprise. And I went, you know what? I need a break from a problem of the day.
And I have forewarned him. I mean, Enterprise is an interesting show. You could tell that Star Trek was experiencing franchise fatigue at that point, having been on the air for, at that point, almost 20 years straight.
Yeah,
and so you had 21 combined seasons by the time the Enterprise rolled around. People weren't interested, and they didn't want to go back. Like, they just did not want to see anything before Kirk and Spock and yada yada yada. So Enterprises kind of ran into that issue where they were the problem of the day in the beginning, and then it became very story based in the seasons 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that's the thing. That the problem that I have really with Enterprise is, like, by the time it finally got going, it got canceled. And it was like such a good crew.
I'm looking forward to Enterprise.
Yeah.
Because I've been made aware that it sort of got shortchanged. It kind of got Fireflied.
It did.
Where it was good, and once it got like itself going on separating from single problem episodes.
Yeah.
That it only got 2 of those.
Yeah, it was just too late, and
I imagine that it can also be boiled down to just fans' reaction to it. And
yeah,
I
gotta be honest.
Ship drops off because they have this perception of it.
I'll come out and say it. I didn't watch it.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
When it came out, I didn't watch it. Yeah. I was like a diehard Star Trek fan, and through and through. But I was one of those ones that was like, you can't go back before Kirk and Spock.
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking? Like, how can you do that? And it wasn't until it was out on Netflix, when it first dropped on Netflix, like in the early 2010s, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks, I'd finished the entire series, and I was left wanting for more. We're just not going to talk about the last episode.
Yeah.
God, I can't wait for you to get to the last episode. So that's going to be an entire episode of this podcast.
It's essentially my turn to do the last season of Game of Thrones.
Yes, it is. Although it's wrapped up in one episode.
In one episode, and not like 7. Yeah.
Yes, I mean we're both going to go on this journey together. I'm really excited about rewatching Enterprise. I'm really excited about the characters. That's one thing that Star Trek has always been. It's a character.
It's always its strongest point.
Yeah,
because
the ensemble.
Because of it being an episodic TV show, that you can have these dedicated episodes to these characters.
Exactly. And one thing that Enterprise doesn't do a whole lot of is those episodes in the beginning really aren't that bad, because the writers had been doing it for so long. Like Manny Cotto and Brandon Braga and Rick Berman and Renee Echevarria and Ira Stephen Bear and stuff like that. All those guys were writing for Enterprise at the end, and they've been writing for Star Trek since the 80s.
What's also great is watching Star Trek and not skipping the intro. Is you're starting to say his names, and now the names are starting to ring bells in my head. So I go, ooh, yeah, we're gonna DS9. Ooh,
you already know the song. You already know the theme song for Enterprise. You are going to be skipping intros all the time.
I'm. You know what? That's the thing. That's the thing. I'm making an internal bet with myself. How long it's going to take for me to start skipping the intro.
3 episodes.
Because
3 episodes. 2 episodes.
I'm wondering if I stick with it long enough, whether or not I may start liking it.
So you might like the little guitar solo that's in there.
Right, because I'm trying to figure out I feel like I know myself, but then this one stumps me, and I go, okay, I'm curious
Matt,
now.
You're not going to have faith of the heart, trust me, okay?
Who knows? Maybe I will start ironically singing along to it, and then, season 3, that's when the ironic becomes genuine.
3 episodes.
We'll see.
We'll see. So, yeah, I mean... you got anything else kind of rolling on? Or?
I think during my break,
curious.
I've been sitting on a couple shows. One of which was Resident Alien.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's behind an extra paywall in Hulu. So I'm bummed that I don't want to put... I mean, yes, Hulu is included in my Disney Plus subscription.
Right.
But I also don't want to really add one more thing, considering I already have Netflix.
Yeah.
I
pay for... I mean... all of us these days pay for online shit that we don't need
at this
anymore.
point. Like, dude, cable's dead to me. The fact that I have to pay extra to watch live Hulu TV, it's like, all right, cable's dead.
Exactly.
Like, if we're already doing what cable was doing on these services, then like just
point?
Kill it. Just kill it.
Exactly.
I started WandaVision.
Ooh.
And I just got past the first 2 episodes, which are fully embracing in the 50s, 60s family sitcom.
Yeah.
Which personally was a bit of a struggle to go through because of the laugh track and how like spot on and like how like accurate it was done. But there are like little bits of like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
Placed in, and by 3rd episode, you're like, okay, you've got me, WandaVision. You've got me.
Yeah.
I'm.
That's what I hear. I wish I knew about the MCU.
The thing is that, again, I've said this before off cast, pre-cast.
Yeah.
The issue with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that you pretty much have to watch
everything.
Yeah. And because like this is gonna mean nothing to you, Jordan.
Yeah.
But this happens and references pre and post snap.
Got it. I do know just enough.
Yeah.
When you're talking about snap, that's when Thanos snaps his fingers and half of everything disappears, right? Yes. Including Iron Man and a bunch of the characters.
A whole bunch of the characters.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do know a little bit. I mean, obviously being on Facebook and stuff.
Right.
You obviously being on Facebook and stuff, like, you know that...
Thanos' snap meme was the meme to go with the entire life.
And no one could, like...
you can't avoid that.
No, and I mean, when Endgame came out, it was, like, there was... Or was it?
It was Infinity War, and then Endgame finished it up. Yeah.
So yeah, when Endgame came out, I mean, people couldn't not. Like, it was freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
So I mean, I kind of get an idea. Like, I've seen all the Iron Mans, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen stuff here and there. The problem is just like
So here's another example: is one of the characters from Thor 2.
Mm-hmm.
Dark World. One of the movies that people rag against. It's like where it's like, okay, the pacing, the story, like yada yada. The plot was just weird,
right?
For Thor 2. One of the scientists that was actually technically she was also in 1, but one of the scientist ladies is a prominent character right now in WandaVision.
Interesting.
So she comes back. There's one of the guys who was in Ant-Man 2, who is like monitoring Scott Lang.
Oh, interesting.
He shows up and
isn't it the Korean guy?
Yeah. Funny thing, in Ant-Man 2, Lang does the card trick.
Yeah.
And privately, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent takes him aside and goes, okay, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
In episode 3, you see him, and he goes, Scott Lang, I think it's what was his character's name? Anyway, he says his name, and he does the card, and it comes out of his hand. I go, he taught him. Scott Lang taught him how to do it. So, like, that's the thing, is like, you absolutely get those fanboy moments,
right?
But you literally have to watch everything
to get it all.
To get it.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And
like, I keep
time commitments.
Yeah, and I keep. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, Disney Plus has it all there.
Mm-hmm.
I just.
It is a serious time commitment.
I mean, here it is. Here it is. I mean, I can't even commit to listening to Dooku. Right. So it's just kind of, yeah, I mean, I'll get there, and I am fascinated about it. I mean, like, one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years to come out really are the two Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I really enjoy them just because they're able to grab that ensemble cast immediately.
It's also very tongue-in-cheek.
It is very tongue-in-cheek, and it works for me. It really does work for me from the simple sense of, like, it feels like an actual comic book movie.
Right, where you have...
There's big, grave consequences, but they're still having fun. Like, I mean, when Peter Quill is at the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, does a dance off.
Dance off, yeah.
When he dances off, like, I lost it in the theaters. Yeah. I'm just like, this fucking guy has had me on edge all like this. He's slaying me, but I'm not saying anything. And then he just butts off with like the Michael Jackson, and I just die.
Yeah.
And so I mean, there are aspects of it. Stan Lee, one of the things that I really love, like X-Men, I love X-Men. X-Men was always my comic book. The X-Men movies were fantastic up until the third one, and then New Class, and then the rest of the garbage.
Yeah.
But so I mean, X-Men 1 and 2 were pretty good.
Yeah.
The destroying of Deadpool in the third one really kind of killed me. I'm glad they fixed Deadpool later on.
Deadpool was already wrong initially, so...
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, still, like...
Well, I mean, also that was Wolverine Origins.
That was Origins. Yeah, that's very true, which was actually a good point. Thank you. God, there's so many of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I still haven't seen Old Man Logan yet. I need to do that.
Same. I was just about to. I thought I was about to drop some like bomb on you and say I hadn't seen Logan yet.
No. Yeah.
There's a reason for that, and it was because I was afraid of how Patrick Stewart was going to approach that.
Sure.
I was a little worried about watching Patrick Stewart die. Like in any role. Like it was like a little rough.
You already saw it in 3, so.
Yeah, but I mean, well. Yeah,
he got snapped.
He got snapped.
That is actually like the same particle effect.
Yeah, Phoenix definitely snapped him out of existence for sure. Wow, we have really digressed. Wow. So we are nerds, by the way. The other one was there's a YouTube series, Epithet Erased, that I was meaning to watch. I'm probably going to start that. I probably shouldn't have doubled down on video games on top of KOTOR. Yeah.
But I started the sequel to, I think, one of my favorite 2D reboots of an old Famicom series games. Blaster Master Zero.
Nice, yeah.
I started Blaster Master Zero 2 today.
Interesting.
That is also like the soundtrack is good. Zero was one of my favorite games that came out. I think it was 2017. That was such a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, that means it came out in 2017. You can't top Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
So, but then I also, as of 3 hours ago, I also started Hitman.
Oh my god!
So now I have two Xbox. Now I have 2 Xbox games.
Yeah, don't worry with Hitman though. You're gonna be. It's a AAA title. It's $60, and it will be over with here in about a couple of hours. So don't worry about it.
I particularly got it just because of. It can be a goofy sandbox assassin game.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm like, I absolutely want to take a cannon and smack it against the dude's head.
Yeah.
And then hide 5 bodies into a freezer. That's not going to kill him. Yeah, that's totally a kill. That he's totally surviving that.
Nice.
So I'm going kind of full in on okay, I'm sort of free from Trek for a bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm not going to be dipping my toes back in until we get an Enterprise. And then from there, we're going to kind of definitely
Yeah.
I think get a little focused. So,
yeah. Cool.
So, on the news front, not a whole lot has happened in the last 2 weeks since last recording. I will say though, yesterday, Paramount Plus officially came out and said that Strange New Worlds is filming. So that literally means that all of Star Trek is in principal photography right now, which means here coming up soon, it's all going to be happening. Yeah. And there's literally going to be a point in time here where there's going to be new Star Trek on at all times. And I can't be happier about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yep, same. And then obviously we mentioned it last podcast. I'm just going to say it again because we need to start getting hyped. Bad Batch, May 4th. We literally have less than 2 months before we get Clone Wars Season 8.
Pretty much.
And so I'm excited about it. We're really excited about being able to talk about episodes when we do this. And, we thought briefly about reviewing Voyager. I thought we did a really good job of that last time. And it's really tough to kind of cover, 187 episodes of something.
It's real hard.
For me, my perspective on Voyager real quick, just kind of round it out. Besides that, news-wise, other than a bunch of stuff happening which is all just really super negative, we're just going to kind of just stay away from that. Other than just like I said, Star Trek's filming and all that jazz.
I now know the struggle of waiting a month for a comic issue now.
Yeah.
I had no problem ever with waiting weekly for TV shows. That was my childhood. That I am perfectly fine with waiting on the edge of my seat for each episode to come out.
Yeah.
For something I enjoy. Hell yeah. A month is a long time.
Yeah.
For about 5 to 8 minutes of reading.
Yeah.
I enjoy the hell out of it. And the High Republic comic issue has some of the best Star Wars art that I've seen in the comics so far.
Yeah, you showed me some of it. It's amazing.
Man, a month is a wait.
Yeah. Well, I guess the old saying is, right? Anything worth having, it's worth waiting for, right? So, well, that's awesome. You had mentioned earlier that you had a possible question that's not the question. Is it the question?
It is the question.
Okay.
It is just very open-ended.
Okay. So, by the way, we're going to kind of get into the questions. We were really, really liking this segment, so this is what we're going to kind of keep doing going forward unless we're focusing
on a specific.
Yeah, but we're going to switch it up this time. I'm going to be asking him the Star Trek question.
Yes.
He's got the Star Wars question.
I've got the Star Wars question for you, Jordan.
Hit me.
So we both very much enjoyed Fallen Order.
Yes.
Fallen Order is a fantastic game.
Yes.
And one of the things with Star Wars games is that they've constantly tried to bring the same feeling of being a Jedi, of wielding a lightsaber, to varying degrees of success. They've achieved, or in the version, in the case of Star Wars Kinect, failed.
Yeah. Wow. Forgot about that.
I was thinking about Star Wars video games.
Yeah.
And specifically on one that has only been played around in a little bit in this area, and that's VR.
Oh, interesting.
So,
thinking about Vader?
I'm thinking, and I'm proposing a question to you, and I'm going to present a base.
Okay.
From to go off of, and I want to see how you jump off the springboard.
Okay.
So in the quest for games to get the same feeling of wielding a lightsaber, I thought VR would be an interesting way of going into that. And we're, for the sake of this conversation, we're going to jump VR technology about 10, 15 years ahead.
Okay.
Where the point where VR games are full games where you'd see traditionally in regular AAA style.
And so basically, you're saying that VR is at this point like the PS6.
VR is essentially on par with a playing experience and time.
Got it.
As what we have right now for
right.
AAA.
And so I guess what I would say that for me, my feeling on that would be like the most close immersion between video games and movies as possible. Got it. Okay.
So my thought is if we really want to get like a sense of progression with, say, a story of a Jedi in training.
Yeah.
And this is where KOTOR starts rubbing off on me.
Yeah, for sure.
Is you're in VR, you got your lightsaber, and there should be a sense of skill that is gained during it.
Mm-hmm.
Like deflecting blaster bolts.
Right, okay.
And when you are trying to deflect, the game will, I don't know, roll, like, or you'll have like stats in like, say, Fallout style, where you'll have, or XCOM style, where you'll have like percentages of like hitting.
Oh yeah, like damage, like damage resist versus damage deflection and what have you.
Some way of like giving you numbers that will increase.
Right.
That will affect how well you deflect.
I feel a lot of KOTOR happening here, just because basically the rolls here with the throws and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
So, what is some other things that in a VR game? Where do you want to take that?
Ooh, in the Star Wars world, I would really like to see, like, I think I've said it before. Mm-hmm. Fallout is one of my favorite game franchises of all time. I would really like to see that sort of open world RPG style, right? Where you're forced to, if it's VR and you're in the world and the gameplay is immersive and it's not clunky and all that jazz, right? Because that's the thing with VR. It's really clunky. It's hard to. So I like the fact that you're putting this down the line,
jumping ahead. Whether it's like hand controls where you move. I mean, we can jump full into like Ready Player One, where you have like a little like ball thing,
right?
It's slippery traction, but you like walk on things.
In other words, a holodeck. In essence, yeah. I would definitely like to see an open world. Number one. And the thing that Star Wars does, like, gives you all these different planets or whatever. I would like to just see some planet that we've never seen of, maybe heard, right? Like maybe Sereno, or just for reference, right?
Right.
But you spend the entire time on that planet, right? And so you're forced to adapt to the world around you. Your play style is determined by your special stats, so forth and so forth.
Yeah.
But what I would really like to see with that is, the deflecting, like all of the force powers themselves, like the KOTOR thing where you get to choose whether you're light, dark, or gray. I would like to be able to see that gray Jedi reach back and kind of pull back from some of the darkness and be able to give force lightning, if necessary. Also as well, like how you interact with the world, using force persuade, interacting with people, depending on how you built your character and stuff like that. Not so Fallout, like you can just put on a new set of clothes, right, and all of a sudden you can persuade this person where you couldn't before.
Right.
But, basically what I'd like to see out of it is a big ranging story where you have to influence and kind of go with the entire world to get, to manipulate the world to, what you need to have happen. But specifically for powers themselves, like I would really like to see the ability to block blaster bolts. I would really like to be able to see the blocking of, like, I mean, still with the PS5 nowadays,
right?
That haptic feedback on the controller. Say your controller for the game is this lightsaber that I'm holding right in front of me. You know, you're deflecting force lightning from Palpatine, right? Your controller is shaking and vibrating and stuff like that. You know, I would like to see having to make choices, selfless choices. I'd like to be able to feel like only I could be the Jedi in this moment, you know, and make that call based on nothing more than basically logic and keeping emotion out of it. And if your decision is even slightly emotional, well, dark side points for you.
Possibly.
You know, that sort of thing. But really what I'd like to see is an immersive world, like for all of the different, what I really liked about Fallen Order was the story and Cal's story about how he's like had done the Kanan thing where he just, I'm not going to use my force powers anymore.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, not going to happen. But then he's forced to, and he, as soon as he does, there's an Inquisitor there to find him.
Yeah.
You know, and so the story, the characters were done really, really well, but you know, like Force Unleashed, KOTOR 1 and 2. I'm trying to think of some other ones. The Obi-Wan Kenobi one. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's like Jedi. Can't think of the name of the game right now off the top of my head. But
they deal like more human, like
more. I want it to feel
in the world.
I want it to feel in the world. Like, I really, like, all Star Wars games have always been really linear. I've never played the Knights of the Old Republic online MMO.
Okay, yeah.
I play Star Trek Online. I figure one MMO is fine for me.
One's enough.
Yeah, and even then I haven't played much of that lately.
Yeah.
Just because it's hard to get through the same stories that I've played 100 times already. But yeah, I would really just like to see that the immersiveness, like you're a Jedi in this world, how you choose to use your powers, how you choose to be a Jedi is up to you. And I would like to see it set after Order 66. Like, I would really, like in a perfect world, like give me rights to this story. You're a Jedi that's fled. You were already somewhat close to the Outer Rim. You were just out, like, with your, you know, you just had a small detachment of clones with you and you were on some special mission or something like that. You were able to quickly, like, take care of your clones, no big deal. You get the message from Obi-Wan saying, hey, hide, go away. And you were literally one of the Jedi that chose to go into the unknown regions. I would really like to see, that would be a really interesting story.
That'd be really cool.
That'd be an interesting story, like have this Jedi show up on a planet who didn't know what the Jedi were, didn't know what manipulating the Force was all about, and your typical Star Wars story, right, where you got to come in, solve some problem, you know, and save the people, but there's no real framework because all games for Star Wars have been very linear. There's not been that
flexibility.
Freedom to choose, you know, and so, I mean, that's the RPG guy in me.
No, part of that is like also like I mean Fallen Order did a wonderful job about world building and like I constantly think back on when you're on I think it's like the first world
Boggin.
Not the base world but like the first like Empire like base.
Oh yeah.
That one. And you have that crashed Clone Wars ship that you go into. Yeah. And then you start to piece together the story of this clone troopers and like the Jedi and like you get to sort of through these these journal entries, these data entries, piece together this person's story, which is also very something that Fallout does very well as well.
The non storytelling,
where
storytelling.
You put it in together on your own,
right?
Like that still stands out as like you exploring.
Yes,
this old wreckage from a time that like you survived that.
Well, and not just that, but like for us, like not only did you survive that, but like for us as fans, you get to see like the opening of it is you're crawling around in a Venator class.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
you see the droids, and like, I mean, that sort of thing just like awakens like the inner Indiana Jones in me. It's like I see something. This belongs in a museum.
I know, yeah. And what's so crazy is like it's all just fictional, and so
like you see like these stormtrooper like in episode 9, you see all those stormtrooper helmets.
Oh, I was just thinking of that. Yeah,
and when I was watching the movie, I'm like instantly, I'm like, yo. If that was me in that situation, I'd have like a bag with me and goes, okay, you're mine, you're mine, you're mine. Like I'm gonna have a personal collection of
old Ezra
Star Wars shit. It's like, if I see something cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, for me, like all of everything when it comes to like whatever you can possibly incorporate into that technology for the day. Really, for me, I just want to have that open world story where you have the choice to, give us 4 endings to the game.
I really like the idea of exploring the unknown region, because then you also pair that with the player getting to feel really special in this universe, in this area where it's like you're the only one who can do this. And then so you got this sort of wow factor that not only the player gets to experience, but also the characters in the world,
NPCs themselves
go in, and then you go, okay, well then how are you gonna react? Like, are you gonna like take advantage of this, or are you gonna be a Jedi and go like, no, this is the Force? You don't think right? Like, how do you go about that world? And that is like an open playing field of like going through. A lot of the source of this question really comes from wishing KOTOR was more modern.
Yeah, and that's
like,
the thing.
It's good, but like playing it, I'm like, man, this would be killer, right? If it was like made now.
Well, and that's the thing.
That's the thing.
It is being recreated, and it's confirmed. So it's just a matter of time. I hope that it stays to its D&D roots.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, because it makes the game a thinking game.
Yeah.
It requires actual skill to play. So, yeah, I kind of figured, that's where you're coming from on it. I really, Star Wars does video games much better than Star Trek. I've played like the Star Trek games that have come out over the years, like Star Trek Armada and like Encounters and Legacy. They're all basically like starship focused games, and it's like that's great. Star Trek Online does like a great mix of space combat and ground combat, but the ground combat just feels really clunky and boring. So
like, I mean, Star Trek, it's like, oh boy, here I am, ensign, like, here we go,
ensign, and then you'll eventually be an admiral by the end of it, and yada yada yada. But for all of that, Star Wars does make better video games. My only knock on them is they're just too linear. They're too like, I'll go back to Pod Racer, like
Star Wars has always done video games the best when they've been arcade.
Yeah.
When they've been in the arcade style. Like, I still hold, Lego Star Wars hella fun. So much fun to play because you don't really die. You just lose, your little bits.
Right.
But like, there's like extra stuff to do with that and like challenges that you impose on yourself, and the game can ask of you to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, then you got like Star Wars Pod Race. You have But yeah, like thinking of like literally like you've got dark forces, you've got the TIE fighter and X-wing. A lot of those are more linear, like mission to mission, and mission to mission isn't bad.
Well, that's how we grew up on video games.
I mean, especially with the influence of Doom.
Yeah,
it's like that's sort of like if you want to do like a video game and it involves a gun. Yeah, at that time. Doom, Quake, and like any of those big guys, like that was what you were emulating.
Exactly. So yeah, I think really to sum it up, I would love to see a broad spectrum of force powers available and the ability to level yourself up on individual things based on like the Skyrim thing where you deflect X amount of things and all of a sudden you get that skill point.
That was one of the things that also like I guess I also didn't word real well, but like the Skyrim is like exactly what I was thinking of.
Like if you can put Skyrim and Star Wars together,
dude.
Like that would be the best possible. Like Skyrim, Star Wars, and Fallout. Like give Bethesda a chance to make a Star Wars game. Like, give them a chance.
I mean, luckily EA doesn't have like
they don't have full rights to it anymore. Exactly.
Which
so
I'm like, after Battlefront 2.
Oh God, yeah.
What I'm like, okay, thank God. Like we had that nightmare.
Yeah.
Like I get it. Also, it's not entirely fair to like. It was just all people needed was one extreme case, and Battlefront 2 just so happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back, where all of the frustration finally landed, and it just so happened to be Battlefront 2 that bore all of the weight.
Yeah, EA needs to stick to Call of Duty and all of the sports games. They could stay away from Star Wars for all I care at this point. Well, it's a great question, dude. Yeah, it was a great question. So my question kind of stems from like now that you have watched everything, just about. So you've done all of the movies. You've done Next Gen, you've done DS9, you've done Voyager, you've done Lower Decks, you've done Picard, you've done Discovery, and you've covered all of the short treks, right? Most of them?
Yeah, I may have not done the very last one.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've really, in the last year, like Next Gen was kind of a thing that's always been around, but in the last year, you've gone through and you've watched 90% of Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
That's a lot of Trek.
So, Star Trek does a couple of things really well, and we talk a lot about that.
Oh, yeah.
The question that I have for you, throughout everything, the themes of Star Trek are pretty clear, inclusivity, science is key, those sort of things. What have you taken from watching Star Trek? What is like for all of us, like I grew up watching Star Trek, and the thing that I took the most about it, I really enjoy leading people, right? Captain Picard was my hero, right? There's a book, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's a leadership book. It's called Make It So.
Yeah.
There's some like Star Wars ones out there, like he bought me Be More Vader.
Yes. Which, like, let's tell that story real quick.
Yeah.
Like, you had like just recently taken over the store.
Exactly.
And
I was such an asshole.
And I go like we do a sit down and we figure out we're both nerds.
Yeah.
We nerd out, and like a couple weeks later, I am aware that it's his birthday coming up.
Yep.
And I find myself at half price. And I find myself in like the young adult, like child section, just because I'm like, I remember sitting on the floor and reading the Pokemon manga.
Nice. Yeah.
Sitting on the floor and confused why the book was backwards. And so I'm like, you know what, for old time's sake, I'll just do like a little lap around. And I also realized how low some of those shelves are. And I go,
right.
oh man, I'm one tall, two. Oh, why are my knees doing this?
Right.
And so on my way up, I see a little like half like height red book, and it says How to Be Vader.
Yeah.
And I open it up, and it's these goofy like managing lessons.
Yep.
That
from Vader's perspective,
from dark side perspective.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I go, this is funny. I'm gonna give this to Jordan.
Yep.
And so I proceed to do that, and only like a month after, I go, I just handed my new boss, who people are like, you know, the room is still like coming to temperature, like how we're doing with this change.
Yeah.
And I just gave him a book about how to be the villain.
Yep. Be more dark side. It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't the smartest move.
Well, let's just put it this way. There were some lessons learned, and I definitely executed them. But, you know, like, for me, like, a lot of my sense of leadership came from watching Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
My love of science came from watching Star Trek over the years. Star Trek has influenced me, my life's, your life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And hopefully everybody out here who's listening to this, you know, has touched your life in some way. The question I have for you is, you know, what have you pulled from Star Trek? What has been the one thing that, like, because we all have those things. Like, you hear people talk all the time. Like, you hear, like, say, Blue DeBarrio and Ian Alexander specifically talking about how the Star Trek family themselves have, like, welcomed them in, and through their exploration of Star Trek felt like they could be more comfortable in their own skin, so on and so forth. And so, you know, what have you pulled from Star Trek? What has been the theme that has, you know, either given you inspiration or, you know, has given you a different perspective on things? Like,
I think just on the surface level, one of the things that I took away from watching Star Trek was that Star Trek wasn't just message of the day.
Right.
That while that is a prominent thing in Star Trek, but certainly in individual episodes, that, and then again through DS9, that there is much more than just what had been exposed to with TOS and Next Gen.
Right.
That Star Trek can go to that deeper level and do big, not only just like obvious social commentary.
Right.
With whether it be how Starfleet interacts with aliens, how other aliens interact with each other, obvious like metaphors and like examples of relationships with different people. But specifically with DS9, where you get those hard-hitting episodes that not only acknowledge it, but also start striking at the root of the issue.
Right.
Well, the origins of it. Like how Cisco doesn't go to the club.
Yeah.
Because of, if we're totally being accurate, that wasn't accepted. That wasn't the norm. And coming off from that, he goes, well, okay, even if it wasn't, like, this, the way I saw it was like, this is also how it could have been.
Right.
Where, like, if we threw all of the bullshit that was in place at that time, like, there could have been, there can be an equal playing field. There can be acceptance, love, and just everyone being themselves.
Right.
And that's, while idealistic and, like Cisco says, not fully accurate.
Right.
It's a window what could have been.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's one of the big things that I took away from DS9 is I couldn't think of any Star Trek episode that I would go up to someone and say, like, this is a prime example of social commentary about like the hard-hitting issues that is handled well and respectfully in a sci-fi setting.
Yeah.
And where like this is like where you come off from an episode going, whoa.
Right.
Like you said before, like Star Trek being inclusive, having representation, like highlight points. One of the things like that you go to in Trek is something that can always stay modern and also be inclusive and just be something that everyone can watch,
right?
And feel like, you know, there's a voice for that somewhere.
And that's well said. Sonequa Martin Green said it. I think in the last Ready Room with Will Wheaton, when he was asking her specifically about what it meant for her as a black woman to be captain of Discovery. One of the things she said after crying for a little bit, she is, by the way, I am such a huge fan.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of her character in Walking Dead. When she got zombied, she was still a badass, and it was pretty awesome. You know, and then through like now, like I'm such a fan of hers, because she is such a fan of Star Trek and their fans, right? Like to have your captain be my captain, right? I mean, oh, captain, my captain. You know, like I felt that way about Janeway. I never felt that way really about Picard. You know,
like Picard is a stand-up dude.
Yeah,
he tried, but you don't have like the Cisco element.
No,
there's like certain episodes, like say with Measure of a Man.
Yeah,
where there's like 2-minute periods during the episode, multiple times in the episode, where Picard plays devil's advocate.
Right.
And then you see him like then go up in front and say all the points that are good to hear, like is what's supposed to be said. But you always have him, you know, the combination of him also playing devil's advocate. It's like, how do I feel on this? Because when you go bounce from those two things just to have a conversation, just to to give Data this whole speaking, like eloquently, like spoken from like this childlike, like disconnected, like innocence.
Yeah.
So and saying it so matter of factly, so bluntly.
Right.
And you're playing devil's advocate just for Data to have that character moment.
Right.
You already have a devil's advocate in that episode. You already have the person arguing against that.
Right.
You don't need your captain doing that.
Exactly.
And so Picard is like a good guy. He's a good captain.
Yeah.
It's moments like that where you go, I don't really feel like I know where his character, his person stands.
Right.
When those moments are utilized.
Well, and it's almost like, for me, the way I look at Picard is his stance on children. Like, I don't want kids. Right. And so something about that, like, I don't know what it is for me, but there was always something about that didn't allow me to really identify with him. Cisco for me is my favorite captain.
Yeah.
Although I'm having a tough time with not calling Saru or, you know, now Burnham, you know, because I mean, we'll see what Burnham has to offer. Like, they're already kind of whispering a little bit about next season. We're not going to talk about that, but I'm curious. Like, I'm curious because I don't think it's going to be an easy go for her as captain at the beginning. But you know, the reason I say Janeway has always been my captain, like, oh, captain, my captain, is because her interactions with fans over the years, she is very much Janeway. Through and through. Her personality is Janeway. Yeah. And so, you know, like, when the pandemic started last year, you know, she tweeted a picture out of herself as Captain Janeway saying, mask up, wash your hands. Like, your captain is giving you an order. Follow them. Yeah. You know, and so that was for me like, oh, captain, my captain, you're my captain. But when Sonequa Martin Green, you know, in that ready room, you know, bringing it around, she was like, you know, the thing that I love about Star Trek is everybody, there's something for anybody in it. Yeah. Like, no matter where you are. And that's, you know, that's a good answer for me because, you know, I've seen Star Trek, you know, you've had the pleasure of watching it once through, you know, like, I've seen it all hundreds of times. Yeah. You know, and Star Trek is part of the fabric of who I am. And the thing that I always took from it in the end was Star Trek was a world, like, I used to, as a kid, pretend I was Captain Picard, and you know, like, just you play with your friends and you're on away missions and yada yada yada. Star Trek was always a home for me. Yeah, like, it was a place where me as the nerdy kid could feel accepted and feel like no matter what, like, I wasn't being judged. And so to hear you say that, you know, you pull that inclusivity from it, and, you know, when you say that there is something for everyone in there, there is, you know. And so, you know, for me, like, I wanted to ask you that question because I'm curious. Like, it's the Star Trek effect, right? Like, Star Trek touches people in ways that are different for each one of us. You know, there's not been a Star Trek fan that I've come across where they like it for the same reasons I do. Yeah. There's so much of it. We got 55 years of Star Trek. Yeah. You know, I mean, actually, we're coming up on 60 years. Yeah. 60 years. Close, yeah, 60, or in 2022, it'll be 60 years because The Cage was released in 1962. But we've got so much. You want to talk about the MCU? Ain't got nothing on Star Trek. Yeah, I mean, it ain't. It doesn't. No, it can't. It doesn't. It can't. Yeah. You know, I mean, we're talking literal. There's now 1,300 years of history that now Star Trek can explore within the same universe, which is pretty awesome. And so, I really love hearing you say, you know, you definitely pull the inclusivity from it.
I think it's also important to say that, I mean, again, this is also still like my first go through, and I'll still probably go through. You're gonna watch DS9
at least 2 or 3 more times. Yeah,
a couple more times. Yeah. But it's weird and sort of hard to say, but it's also worth saying. I don't remember if it's made it into the last episode, but, like, I'm definitely not who I was 10 years ago. Yeah. And I would have, if I had not changed during those 10 years, I'd have different views on characters in Discovery. Yeah. And I have separated that part of my path. I'm so far from where I was that I can't even put a voice to those thoughts that would come. Right.
And I think I know what you're talking about, and why I appreciate the vagueness on that, because, you know, one thing about Matt and I that y'all should know is that, you know, I think we've said it before a little bit too, is that we're the human race, and inclusivity is the most important thing for all of us. You know, us nerds, we all know it's tough to feel accepted and welcome. You know, and so, you know, I appreciate the vagueness on that, because I can tell you right now, 10 years ago, I would have felt much the same.
See, and the thing is I think, to put it the best way I feel like Star Trek can be for me is Star Trek has and will continue to be to be a voice of inclusivity, equality.
Yeah.
But also is one of those series for me that can help me be the best ally I can be.
Right. Agreed.
Because
being open-minded. And Star Trek teaches you to be open-minded.
And there's also things that I can work on. There are still preconceived notions of multiple things where, like, I may not have been exposed to certain things that would help me. Remnants of those years ago.
Absolutely.
That I don't even realize yet.
Right.
And so, I mean, I can't say I'm perfect, but Star Trek is one of those things, one of those series that I know it's like can help. At least,
Yeah. Absolutely. I
can be there.
I can't disagree with you, man. I think that, I feel like I grew up a lot more open-minded, just having watched Star Trek. Like, the thing that Gene Roddenberry did in the 60s was he wanted to put a black woman, he wanted to put an alien, and he wanted to put a Russian on the same bridge together to show that in a couple hundred years, none of that matters.
Yeah. And like we can rag on TOS for its the era
of
views,
the era, exactly,
of its views. But again, the fact that they did that, even if it's a low bar, even if it's surface level, if it's just that is setting a standard, setting a precedent, that can be built off of, and which has been built off of.
The first ever interracial kiss happened on Star Trek, right? The first ever acknowledgement of a lesbian relationship, not the first ever, but I'm thinking of the Dax episodes of DS9 where she had a lesbian relationship. That was controversial at the time.
Yeah, no, when I mean, that's damn, I did not know that. All right. Way to go. Right. Star Trek.
Exactly.
For doing that.
When,
because I mean, I can guarantee that that's something I would not have heard. I mean, if I was alive at that point,
right,
that I would not have heard of that as within like the ages of like 10, 15 years old. Like I would not have heard of that, or I would have been given viewpoints.
So when that episode came out, there was a TV guide cover that covered that episode and the controversy that surrounded it. I remember asking myself as a kid, I'm, getting close to, DS9 at that point. I think I was probably 15 when that episode came out. Pretty close-minded or open-minded. As a kid, you don't know. Yeah. Like, you're just a product of the world around you. I remember saying, well, what's the problem? What's the issue here? And it led me to look into it. And, well, what does being a lesbian really mean? Or is she having a bisexual moment? What does that even mean?
Right.
Like, Star Trek challenged.
Yeah.
They challenged it. And, like, I didn't realize how much Star Trek ran counterculture in a lot of ways, because the challenging of norms and counterculture is a bad way of putting it, but runs parallel to the culture in the sense of like it's not afraid to call it out.
Yeah.
And once again, going back to what you said, just the fact that Star Trek is for everyone. I just wish more people would understand that.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard. Like, I get it. Like, those of you who don't like sci-fi, you know,
I get. You're
not listening to this podcast, so
right.
whatever. But those of us that don't like sci-fi, they have something else that they're into, right? Like, it could be baseball. Like, you guys may not know this, but I'm a huge baseball nerd too. Like, my girlfriend called me a poly nerd, I think is what she called me the other day.
Yeah.
I think I said yesterday it was pan nerd, but it's actually poly. Poly nerd is what I am. I've got so many damn interests in what have you, with Star Trek and Star Wars being foremost among them. But, you know, you got sports fans and you got, you know, they're like reality TV show fans, 90 Day Fiance fans, like The Bachelorette and The Bachelor and all that stuff. All of that, there's something in that for someone.
Yeah.
Right? The thing that I love about Star Trek is that it is for everybody.
That's the thing is even if you're not a fan of Star Trek, of sci-fi, I think Star Trek, there is an episode or a set of episodes
for you,
for everyone that might get you interested.
Right.
Because whether it be a storyline, representation,
right.
Just
a good action-packed
good
episode.
Action, like anything. Like, there is something for everyone in Star Trek.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking if there was a parallel or
intersect.
Yeah, it intersects or like
crossroads,
crossover with Star Wars.
Oh
if the same can be said about Star Wars or not, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, that's a tough question.
Just something popped into my mind. It's like I don't know. Like,
that's an interesting thing to actually explore, and that's actually. I was looking back through some of my episode ideas for my original YouTube channel, and that was the Star Trek versus Star Wars debate and where they run parallel with each other. And the only thing that I can really kind of pull from it is that, and I said it in the last 2 episodes ago, Star Wars basically shows you that the everyday person is capable of amazing things.
Yeah, being exceptional. Yeah.
Right. That's about it.
Yeah.
Once again, Star Wars is just about good versus evil.
Yeah.
And light versus dark and so on and so forth. And so, but I can say this. This conversation has challenged me a little bit to look into that. See, like, through the movies, we're not going to get that. We're not going to get that in the movies. You're not. It's the movies are the movies.
Yeah.
And they are what made Star Wars possible. But I really want to look at maybe The Mandalorian a little bit. I want to look I think Clone Wars might actually be a better, because there's so many episodes of it. I'm wondering if I think we could start finding some.
If we're doing a surface level conversation on this, I think Clone Wars is the closest Star Wars has gotten to Star Trek.
Agreed, because they had the problem of the day more often than not.
Yeah.
But it still moved the story forward in a lot of ways. And so, you know,
even though that forward jumped through the timeline like 50,000 times.
Oh, the Clone Wars timeline hurts my head.
Yeah. But
it hurts my head.
Despite moving the plot forward, which is just the general war at random points.
Right.
There's still forward progress.
Right. I think, you know, next time we go through Clone Wars, like, eventually we're going to have to. Eventually we're going to have to. I love Clone Wars. Don't get me wrong.
It's just there's more. It's hard, a little harsh to say filler, but
yeah, I mean, with Rebels, you get 21, so that's 42, and then 30. So you get 72 episodes.
And only 2 of those I firmly believe are stinkers, and that's that's the
it's like the second episode where you're dealing with R2D2 and C3PO. Although it's not too bad because Callus has a really good part in that episode.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking of the kids in the YT previous cruiser.
You know, Yeah.
Those two are the
Iron
only
Squadron.
stinker.
Iron Squadron. Okay.
That's the only stinker for me.
I agreed. But what's funny about that, though, is the kids, at least the main kid, General Commander
You're
Sato's,
doing a one-up on me, dude.
Yeah,
as soon as I heard their names, it was out of my brain.
Yeah, so Commander Sato, who is the rebel leader, the fleet leader, the fleet admiral or whatever. Wow, I'm feeling pretty smart here. But it was his son, or his nephew was the captain of that YT cruiser. Yeah. And he actually has a big part to play in the last couple episodes of Rebels. And so, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, I'd agree. Maybe 2 episodes out of Rebels. So 70 episodes of incredibly focused, well done storytelling.
Yeah.
Rebels, you got like 130 episodes of
Clone Wars.
Of Clone Wars. Or Rebels. Yeah, Clone Wars, excuse me.
Yeah.
You got 130 episodes, of which maybe I'd say 70 of those episodes.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being harsh, we could just cut that in half.
Literally.
Okay, cut the number of episodes in half and say, like, those are like
the ones, yeah.
And even then, you're counting a lot of episodes and you're not doing the minimum watch.
Right.
So,
and one of the things we want to do here is, like, coming up is, like, start giving you guys some episode lists to kind of our recommendations for, some episodes and stuff like that. But I do want to take a look at Clone Wars again, only from the stake of, you're right, I do believe that it's the most like Star Trek out of all of it. I do kind of want to see if I can pull some themes out of it. Although I did from Mandalorian a little bit, specifically with the 2 New Republic pilots in the second season, how Mando is going through, and like when he's being attacked by those spiders in that cave with the frog lady, they let him live only because they knew of his reputation because he had been doing some good things.
They didn't take him in because of
right.
That, yeah.
And so I got a little bit of the sense of, like, I remember when at the time the episode came out, I was kind of like, what's the bigger story happening here? What's going on there? Not knowing where the hell that was going to go, obviously, but that I do get a little bit of sense of that. Like, your actions, positive actions do have positive consequences down the line. And so, but I think I would like to draw a little bit of that because, I mean, that's, I think, the biggest philosophical difference between Star Wars and Star Trek. Like, it's sci-fi, but practical-based sci-fi versus fantasy-based sci-fi.
Right.
Fantasy-based sci-fi is so...
I think we're starting to go
deep
into that.
Yeah,
but I think the fact that it's the combination. So we take Star Trek, and it's practical, social commentary. You got like real world stuff in space.
Right.
In sci-fi, like, okay, like at least you have like the human element, the personal connection, yada, for that part. You take Star Wars and you name 2 nerdy things that, like, the stereotypical that goes, oh yeah, you're a nerd. Like, oh, you don't get ladies at all.
Yeah.
And that's sci-fi, robots, space, and fantasy. Wizards, like dungeons, beasts. You just combined those 2 like pure nerdy things into one. Like, so it's I don't fault my friends who didn't grow up watching Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I do not expect them to get fully into Star Wars. I mean, that being said, the benefit that Mando has is its pop culture relevance.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that has started hooking people. Is like, I've heard people say, I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars.
I'm watching this.
I've watched the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Or, I've never, but I watched Mandalorian and I love it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that sort of thing where it has the pop culture thing.
And I really want Star Trek to have that a little bit, and hopefully it does soon. I really do. I hope it gets that, like, super pop culture.
It's so weird. It's so weird that I guess maybe just weird to me but it strikes me as strange that Star Trek wasn't the one that got that.
I know.
Attention, that recognition, but in Star Wars,
considering Star Trek was out first and has literally thousands of more hours of content.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we've also said pre-podcast that that's the advantage that Star Trek has is you have all those episodes to create like this living, breathing world.
Yeah.
And Star Wars is building off of the movies to try to create that world that lives and breathes.
Exactly. And that's what we get to experience here really soon is watching those two worlds create themselves and move forward. It's fucking awesome, dude. It really is. Yeah.
It also strikes me that, there hasn't been a Star Trek movie. And I mean, like, that's not, I guess, I mean, I'm in my head, I was discounting the JJ movies, but
it's fine. Go ahead. No big deal. No big deal.
It's been a while since we've had something that's directly connected to
the main
series that's been going on.
Yeah, I'm so curious. I'm just wondering if we ever see like direct to theater Star Trek again,
or direct to streaming.
I think it's what it's going to be.
I mean,
I think it's what it's going to be going forward. So I don't know. That's exciting, man. Yeah. So. Well, I
think that's a podcast.
Well, shit, man. Great question.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. So I guess we'll kind of run through the usual finishing stuff because we actually ran a little long this time. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty excited about that. For as awesome as it's been, kind of getting the last couple of podcasts down to an hour, it's kind of awesome just to be able to kind of nerd out. And so.
Yeah, Jordan was before we started recording. Goes, I don't know if we might have a short one today. I'm like, if your question is as open ended as mine is, then we're fine.
And that's the thing. Like, it's always just that shit. Are we gonna have enough to actually podcast on? So yeah, I mean, for us as always, we really appreciate you guys listening. We are. Continuing to push this thing forward and really enjoying doing this. I enjoy actually listening to our podcast, even though I forget, like I forget sometimes what we talk about. And so, like, I'll find myself actually laughing, like the Sidious's Trump impressions.
Yeah.
What the fuck, dude?
That caught me off guard when I was editing. He
texted me and he's like, by the way, we had some of this, and I'm like,
dude, I totally forgot we did Palpatine Trump,
and it was amazing. So we really appreciate it. So as usual, leave comments down below, leave questions. We'd be glad to. There's been a couple comments, but it's more been from people saying, hey, make it shorter. But definitely leave comments, leave questions down below. We'd love to answer any questions. That's kind of how this all really started. In the description below, we'll have links to our Facebook page, which I might actually post on this time. I think I'm ready for this. Twitter, SoundCloud, please subscribe, like the video. Mm-hmm. Check out our Twitter page for sure. Matt actually does a lot of stuff with that one. It's pretty awesome. So that's what I got. You got anything for me?
I think that wraps it up.
All right. Well, in the words of "Oh Captain, My Captain," I hope you guys all stay safe. Stay non-sick if you can, and let's fly.